what key performance indicators or metrics do you consider are the most important in SaaS products user experience?
I would say that one of the most important is wasted potential features. If someone never uses something, it means that that something shouldn't be there.
The topic that I'm going to be asking some questions is regarding effective UX on SaaS products, okay? So the first question will be, how do you approach the process of understanding the unique needs and preference of users when designing the user experience for SaaS products?
Well, we need to talk to them. That's the basic part. I think that the most important part in any related product, like not even SaaS, any product, you need to start through research because you need to talk to whoever will be using the product. Sometimes SaaS products are based on assumptions, and it's a very, very big thing with SaaS that they keep building these projects on the go. So whenever they have new requirements, they just build something extra, right? So it kind of ends up like a Frankenstein that has been kind of embedded over time, but you have to go back to the foundations and see how this Frankenstein is working and make it work seamless under one umbrella. And the easiest way to do that is actually talking to the people who are using the product and asking them, what are their needs? What are it happens a lot with, for example, compliance softwares. What are they looking for? What happens a lot with these Frankensteins is that they have a gazillion features, but they use two of them, right? So it's better to have two very well-used features than have 100 ones that won't even be used. So like there's no point in redesigning everything, right? So I believe that our first approach is always going to the basics with any product. And with SaaS is the most important one because what I was just telling you, right? You need to see who will be using it, what are they using it for? It's the second very, very large part. And the third one is what is the process, right? Or what is the journey that these users are taking in order to create this information architecture and a UX that actually works for them.
Actually, you mentioned a little bit about my second question, that is, often SaaS products are really complex functionalities. So how do you strike a balance between providing robust feature and maintaining simple that ensures a positive user experience?
So the first one would be, what are the main or the most used ones? And this has to do, again, with talking to users, right? We certainly have a lot of things, because something that it's very intricate about SaaS products is that their customers are a very large group, right? So you're basically working with interactions that will be happening with a lot of very different users that uses the program for several different functions, right? And what you need to see in this pattern is, well, basically, what is the pattern, right? What is the baseline? And those are the features that need to be showcased or upfront. And then what are the exceptions? And that's mostly what a researcher does, right? Like, what is the baseline? What do I need? What is the extra? And how will I split it up, right? So that they will get the view of the main view, and then start customizing depending on what they need. But one thing is to talk about the main features, and the other one is talking about customization. So we need to be tackling both at the same time. You know what I mean?
Okay. So with that in mind, do you have an example that you can share where user feedback and research significantly influence a design decision?
Yes, I have a lot of them. We have one very recent one. I don't think I can name the company though. We had to build a compliance software where this was just this is the perfect example, because they had a lot of mini apps embedded in one thing that didn't even knew what it was, but there was no relationship between all those tiny mini apps that they were working out with. So what they actually needed was an umbrella, right? And it was like this main platform, as I already mentioned, that had the features that everyone needed and the information that they all needed access to. And then they could know what tiny, suite they could be using for whatever they needed. So what ended up happening in the project was that, right? We started talking to people and they said, for example, we all need to know what the name is or what the social security number is, right? Because that's the starting point. And then after that, it will depend on anyone. So we had to talk to a lot of users, and this was a complicated case because there were users that used certain things from each app, but not even the main ones. So we had to talk to a lot of the people who were using the software, see what functionalities they needed, and then build on the ones that they needed to be customized. It ended up being interesting because they needed to customize different things. So we ended up delivering kind of like templates, and our job was mainly in how we visualize the information so that it was easy for them to read and easy for them to report. So at the beginning, everyone thought that it needed to be a more intricate user interface, but it actually needed less, So it was, yeah, it was fun.
You mentioned that for one people to have one information, they need to go to different apps
Yes,
to have one piece of information.
the complete panorama of information, more than one piece of information. What they needed was kind of like a full status report, and they had to get it from, I think it was 5
Oh my God.
different. Uh-huh. So what we ended up doing was a control panel that helped everyone and was what they actually needed. It was kind of like a no-brainer after we talked to them.
Okay. Okay, so with that in mind, what key performance indicators or metrics do you consider are the most important in SaaS products user experience?
I would say that one of the most important is wasted potential features. That would be if someone never uses something, it means that that something shouldn't be there. Because different from other apps, it's not something that they can or cannot use. So bounce rate is not really something measurable in this case because they have to use it, right? They don't have a choice. So I would say is wasted potential time for them to finish their tasks is a very, very good key indicator, and overall performance in how they report, how they get that information, and the time that it gets them to get it.
Okay, so that we ended up with the SaaS related, and this is the last one. So technology is evolving every day. How do you stay updated in the latest trends and technologies, and especially for UX design for SaaS products?
I read a lot. That's something. And I think that's also something important. Technology changes a lot. The UI changes a lot, right? But I think the most important part is being truth and honest on what people actually need. Because some people always want to go trendy, right? They want to say, oh, I will implement this huge, amazing new technological thing. And the reality is that the people who will be using it are 60 to 70-year-olds, and they won't even know how to use it. So I think that SaaS particularly, it's a very interesting it's a very interesting use case because you have to be guided on what people really need, right? It's not that much of a trend, but much more of the functionality of the product. Then you can use certain trends to better enhance the product. That it's, for example, search, right? We need a more robust search engine. We need a more, I don't know, user-friendly interface in the way that it should be simplified and it should be handled easier. And you use some of those trends. But SaaS, at least for me, it's about strategy and UX. As long as that is nailed, UI will follow.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's true.